Hello everyone, this is Seah once again. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to talk about the SMEG EMC02. Right, I've done an unboxing video on this before, so today I'm going to run you through on the function that this machine offers, as well as pulling a shot on this machine, maybe in part 2. Then in part 3 I'm going to talk about the ups, the goods, and the maybe not so good thing about this machine. So let's get started. Right, so the first thing we want to see is how fast this machine heats up, right? On paper, this machine actually has 3 thermal blocks. So from what I understand, one of the thermal block of course is in charge of controlling the stability of the temperature of the group. The second thermal block is actually to maintaining the steam, right? So that you can have controllable steam power. And the third thermal block, I'm not too sure, but I know there's actually a activated heated element inside here to maintain the group's temperature to be very stable, right? So now I'm going to switch on this machine and we're going to see how fast this machine heats up. So let me start the machine. Right, so the machine has started. Let's start the timer as well. Currently, I have the steam mode activated together with the brew group, which means whenever the brew group is ready, the steam should be ready together. So when it's ready, the 3 lights here will stop flashing. So let's wait for a while. You can see how fast the temperature actually goes up. That's the reason why some people like thermal block, because thermal block is very energy efficient. It heats up very fast. And it doesn't behave. Since it's not a boiler machine, it does not store water in the boiler. So it always draws water from the water tank as and when it needs. And being a thermal block, which means to say you do not, you actually can do descaling yourself. You do not have to worry that you will damage the boilers. So that's another thing. So right now the machine has been switched on for about 1 minute. Let's see how fast the machine actually heats up and get ready to temperature. Right, so while the machine heats up, right, let me talk about more about these functions. Of course, but being a dual thermal block with 1 evaporator pump means that you can only perform a specific function at a time. What I mean is that you can, when you are pulling espresso on the group, you can't steam the milk and vice versa, right? But the thing is that you do not have to wait between pulling a shot of espresso on the group, and immediately you can actually go on to steam your milk, which can be done immediately after, but not at the same time together. So right now it's about 1 minute 42 seconds. Right, you can see the temperature is now getting, I think they're trying to bring the thermal block up to temperature. So it should be ready very soon. I have tried the machine, the steam, I have set it on the higher setting. Right, it is actually pretty, I would say pretty good power. Right, it is actually kind of good for maybe beginner who are first time trying to stretch the milk. It gives you more time. And for professionals, the milk can really be stretched to a very velvety, very full of microforms, and it's very easy to do latte art. And later, if I have the time, I will show you how I do the milk stretching without even holding on to the milk jug. So that's what we call the gross frothing. So right now, it's about 2 minutes 32 seconds. So I believe the thermal block should be ready within 3 minutes. So that's how long it needs to wait. Let's say you go to wake up in the morning, switch on the machines, you go into your bathroom, brush your teeth, take a piece, and when you come out, the machine should be ready, right? So this is actually from cold start, right? So it's approaching 3 minutes, right? Can see the machine is ready exactly at 3 minutes. Okay, so now I'm going to show you what's on the menu. Basically, if I press this one more time, right, you can see now it is switching the thermal block from the steam mode to the hot water mode. So of course, you are switching from a temperature of about 125 degrees Celsius back to the brew temperature. So it's going to discharge some of the water through your drip tray. So that's the sound you heard. And then now you can see it is hot water. And then to get hot water, it's actually very simple. Right, using exactly the steam knob, once you turn, right, you'll get hot water. And if you want to get an Americano, you can get it from here. Right, so turn it off. Basically the steam button does only on and off. You can't really control the steam power or the amount of water that comes out from your steam knob here. So let's switch back from the water mode back to the steam mode. Right, so you can see by the switch of button, it's going to go back. The steam temperature is actually raised up pretty quick. I would say maybe less than 30 seconds, the steam mode will be ready. So again, you can see once this steam is stopped flashing, means that the thermal block is up to the steaming temperature. Currently, I'm actually setting my brew temperature to 90 degrees Celsius. You can see it's ready. It's definitely less than 30 seconds. So right now, I'm going to show you how you actually get into the menu to adjust all the settings on this machine. So it's very simple, right? So I'm going to show you quickly. Right, so to get into the menu button, you just press the center button and hold. Right, you can see the first thing you see is language. Right, now it's currently English. If you want to change, you can just cycle up and down. Right, and to confirm it, of course, we want English. Press the center button and you will flash, and then you will memorize the language button to be set at English. So same thing, we're going to go down. Right now, I can change the temperature. Right, I can convert either to degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit. Again, in our country, Singapore, we only do degrees Celsius and not Fahrenheit. So press again to memorize it. Right, let's go down. Right, next, this is temperature of coffee, which means it's controlling the temperature of the brew group. Press again. You can see I'm currently set at 90 degrees Celsius. If you want to go up, you can press the right button. Let's check out what's the maximum temperature can go. Oh, maximum temperature is actually 100 degrees Celsius. You can actually set this temperature of the brew group all the way up to 100, but we seldom use 100 degrees Celsius unless you are using a very light roasted coffee. So, okay, wait, let's get back here. Temperature of coffee, press the center, and then let's say you want to switch on, let's say we do the temperature of the brew group at 92 degrees Celsius. Press the center, again to memorize the function. Okay, let's go on to the second one. Okay, this is the pre-infusion setting. Right, you can see pre-infusion I can set at up to maximum of 4 seconds. So pre-infusion basically, what it basically does is it will dose water through a group at a very low pressure for the amount of second you desire as you set. And then what this does is it will help to saturate the coffee puck before the full pump kick in to exert a very high pressure. So in theory, this is supposed to help you with extractions to reduce channeling. And of course, very much the channeling also depends on how well you prepare your puck, how your coffee grinder performs. Because in order to hold the pressure, you can't have something that is very, you can't have your grinder to grind very uniformly. You need something to produce some fine coffee powder in order to increase the pressure experienced by the pump. So if everything is grinded very uniformly, the tendency is that you have to grind very, very fine in order to get the pressure that you want. So let's go through that again. Okay, it has actually gone out because I've been speaking too long. Let's get back to the function. Language, degree. Right, let's check the pre-infusion. Currently it's set at 2. Let's say we set at 3 seconds for now. Right, you can go up to a maximum of 4 seconds. Right. So this is the steam mode, right? You can actually cycle through steam power. There's a 3-stage power adjustment, 1, 2, or 3, 3 being the most powerful. I like my steam to be set at the most powerful temperature, right? Which will give me a shorter time when I steam the milk. So you can also set the standby. You can set a standby at 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, or even 5 minutes, right? So I think 30 minutes is quite ideal for my setting. So I'm just going to set it at 30 minutes. Right? Eco mode, right? You can actually switch on or off the eco mode. What it means is if you let the machine idle for a while, right, the machine will actually sort of cut the power off the thermal block and reduce the thermal block to a certain temperature. I believe it should be around 40 plus degrees Celsius. And then the moment you touch any button on the machines, you're going to bring the temperature up. So let's do it. So I usually will turn the eco mode on so that actually I can conserve power. If I accidentally left the machine on for quite some time, it actually go into eco mode and then it actually saves me power. Right, so H2O, right, this is the hardness level in your country. In Singapore, the water is very soft, so I'm just going to set at 1, right, that's it. Memorize it. So now let's go on to descale. Right, there is a descale function. You can actually activate the machine to do descaling. My choice of the descaling liquid, I would suggest to use citric acids, right? Because citric acid is food safe. And then, of course, you can use the commercial available descale agents. Remember, descale is different from back flushing. Descale, what descale does is it cleans off the lime scale that build up in your thermal block. And for the thermal block machine, it is very, very important to do the descale function. You can imagine thermal block like your heart, right? Imagine the blood vessels is connected to your heart, and your blood is pumping through the heart. As you get older, as you add fatty stuff, your artery is going to be clotted with all the cholesterol or the fats. So if you don't clean all this off, it's going to restrict the water going through. And for the case of the thermal block, it's going to restrict the amount of water going through. And because the thermal block can be coated with a lime scale, which will actually cause the efficiency of the heater to reduce. Now the heat from the thermal block need more energy to pass through the water. So this will actually make the heating up very, very slow. So it is good to descale the machines depending on how hard the water is in your region, right? But for Singapore, we recommend that you descale maybe once every 3 months, and you just have to use the descale cycle here. Right, let me just show you through. Right, descale, and the last button is actually reset. So you can reset everything back to factory. If you have accidentally set something wrong or something that you don't desire but you can't remember, you can just press this button and everything will go back to your factory default. Alright, so for the second part of the video, we're going to pull some shots. I hope I can pull maybe within 2 shots. If I can, I will do maybe espresso shots, and I'll probably do maybe 2 piccolo, so that I can actually show you how well the milk can be textured. Right, so the thermal block is now very hot. The group is actually very hot, so it is definitely quite efficient in heating the thermal block up and maintaining the temperature I want. The machine does, you are able to do a manual extraction here. You can see there's a manual lever switch. Once you switch up, you can actually pull a shot. Alternatively, you can also set a single or a double shot button. But when it comes to single and double shot, it doesn't really it does not appeal to me as a single or double shots. For me, it's more of a function in terms of time that you want to set your shot. So for example, I can set the first button as my flush back button, so I can press, let's say I start, and then you're going to kick in, and then I'm going to hold it for 5 seconds, and I'm going to press again. So let's say I let it flush for 10 seconds. Right, so the next time I press it, right, it's going to memorize the function in terms of time, and then you're going to flush the system for 10 seconds. So it's actually your preferred setting in terms of time rather than the dose. So you can see it cut off at 10 seconds. So for convenience, if you like to have a more manual approach to your coffee extractions, you can use the manual switch button. Alternatively, you can also set press once and forget, so it will be programmed to the time that you set. So this is something that maybe other machine of this category don't have. For example, if you are getting a heat exchanger from other brands, I don't want to say the brand, with a manual lever, usually you do not have the options to adjust your time, and you do not have the button. You always have to do everything manual, and anything that comes with button, you usually don't have this manual switch, so you can't do both, but this machine allows you to do that. Alright, so now we're going to pull a shots. So let's pull an espresso first. This is the blend that we have created for this month. It's called the First Light. I do not have the logo printed here because I trialed this. The bean comes from Uganda, China, Yunnan, as well as Kenya. So it has a blend between these 3 countries. Let's do a 17-gram shots. The basket allows you to contain all the way about 18 grams, but personally I think 17 grams will be quite good. Yep, this is 17 grams, so let's grind for espresso. The coffee is probably roasted 2 weeks ago, so I'm not too sure, how my first shot is going to be. So let's just give it a try. Right, currently the grinder you see is actually the grinder from Timor. Alright, so I usually like to use a blind shaker. So I'll be shaking this way. Of course, in my previous video, I shake this way. In my previous video, I did try different way of shaking this, and I believe it does matter. So now let me take out the polyfilter. The machine is slightly on the lighter side, so if you don't hold on to the machine, you can see the whole machine can actually move. So, okay, let's take out the polyfilter. Right, the polyfilter is very hot in fact. And you can see the stock basket that comes with the SMEG. It has a much smaller extraction area as compared to a normal basket that's like that. Right, and I believe this is the same basket that La Pavoni has on their professional series of machines. Right, so let's transfer the coffee. I'm going to use the temper that comes with the machine itself. Right, so let's do a little bit of WDT. Right, and then let's try to distribute. Okay, it seems that my distributor can't really fit onto the basket. Okay, let's just temp it using the temper that comes with it. You can see the temper is a very solid temper. And to temp, I will recommend leaving the temper on the polyfilter and then gently use a finger to sort of make sure that everything is level before you actually press down. A level temp is much more important than a temp that you didn't temp it hard enough, right? Because there's only so much space you can temp it down, right? And personally, I like to have a puck screen on top of my. You can see the puck screen can't really fit because the basket is slightly smaller as compared to my other. Oh, it actually goes down, right? So I think you have to push it a little bit. So now let's lock up, and to lock up the machines, the polyfilter into the group, I will recommend holding on the machine this way, and then you turn the polyfilter in the anti-clockwise direction and make sure you lock it well. Otherwise, I've seen videos done by others whereby you can see the water leaking out from the group. Right, so now let's look at the extractions. Please don't fault me if the first extraction is not well done. So I'm going to just channel the coffee into two small little cups. Right, so let's look at it. I will also want you to focus on the pressure gauge here, which actually measures the brew pressure. If I didn't grind right, from here I should be able to tell. So let's use the lever this time to pull a shot. Right, and the moment you start the extractions, the shot timer will be activated. Oh, the pressure seems to be pretty well. It's in the green zone. The crema is good, looking good on the in the cup. We are now at around 16 seconds. Right, and then you can see we are yielding about 39 grams of espresso. So now let's give the espresso a taste. Right, you can see. Right, cheers. Wow, I'm getting all the flavors I want from this coffee. This coffee is a lot more complex than the Inferno Java that we have been using for the last quarter, for the last 3 months. At ASK Coffee Roastery, we usually will rotate the beans every 3 months on our espresso offering. Usually we have a blend and a single origin for every 3 months, and we rotate them, right? So cheers. And now what I'm going to show you is how easy to steam the milk on this machine. And you know what? Actually, SMEG machine comes with this milk jug. I would say that it's a little bit too big for me. I prefer something of this size. Right, you can see the difference in size here. I prefer to use this. But since I'm using SMEG stuff, I'm just use a SMEG pitcher. So let's get some milk. Of course, the bigger the milk jug that you use, the more milk you have to use, right, in order for you to froth properly. So always, before you do anything, always before you froth the milk, make sure you purge it. fair there may be a little bit too much water inside because I tried to flush water just now. So if there's lesser water in here, you will not be able to see water splashing out from the drip tray. So I think should be ready. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stretch the milk. Right, so I'll get my cameraman to switch the angle. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to place, okay, you can see because the milk pitcher is wider and hence I have to dive my steam tip deeper into the milk. So let's get started. Okay, it's probably difficult for me to do gross frothing this time because of this milk jug, but it's definitely possible. Okay, it's ready. Alright, so let's see the velvety milk from this. Remember always to wipe your steam tip and do a purge. This is really to increase the longevity of your machine. So now let's try to do a little bit of latte art. You can see this is a very small cup. Let's try, right? Okay, so even though it's a very small cup, but it's definitely possible. So let's have a go and see how it tastes. Cheers. Wow, it's perfect. It's really good, right? So SMEG is not well known for their coffee machines, but I think they've got it right this time. I'm pretty impressed so far. Alright, so for the last part of the video, what I'm going to talk about is the pros and cons of this machine, if there's any con. Right, so I will be very honest about these machines. First of all, I will list down all the cons about this, all the pros about this machine, sorry. Right, so first of all, it comes with thermal block system. On paper, it has 3. So I suppose one is meant for the brew group, one is meant to control the temperature of the steam. So to be able to control these temperatures is very important in coffee extractions because we want to make sure that we are able to maintain a very steady temperature when we do a coffee extractions. And to be able to adjust the temperature by degrees Celsius is something that not many machines at this category has, right? If you have a standard heat exchanger, even though they say it's a PID machine, but can you imagine controlling the single boiler for both the functions for brewing espresso as well as for steaming? So can you imagine steaming milk at 125 degrees Celsius and brewing a coffee at 92 degrees Celsius? So even though it's PID, but it will not be as precise as a dual boiler, definitely. But this one performs like a dual boiler, but it uses separate thermal block for each of the dedicated functions. And the thermal block, it's super efficient in energy conservations, and then it always draws fresh water, and you do not have stagnant water left inside the boiler, and you don't have to worry about descaling of the boiler. This thermal block can be descaled very easily, and of course they also provide you with this blind disc, which is actually for you to do back flushing. And don't get confused between these two. These are the proper maintenance you need to do for this machine, especially descale. Remember, descaling is meant to remove the lime scale that's built up inside the thermal block. You know, if you leave your water on the table for too long, if it shows that there are rings of white color powder forming, which means there will be there will be calcium inside the water, and this calcium will deposit in the thermal block if you don't clean them regularly. And as I mentioned just now, it will clog up the thermal block, and eventually if you don't clean it in time, you may have to change the thermal block. So this is something. Same thing for boilers. If you don't clean the boilers, it's even worse. It's harder for technician to service boiler, right? It's easier for you to service your thermal block at home. So I think this is a pro. This is actually one of the advantage of this machine. And of course, it heats up so fast. From cold start to ready in temperature and steaming, you only take 3 minutes. You know, your normal heat exchanger take at least 10 to 15 minutes, right? I don't want to mention the brand. Some brands even requires 25 or even 30 minutes. If you talk about dual boiler, it probably take 35 to 40 minutes to get properly heated before you can pull your shots, right? This machine heats up in 3 minutes and the brew group is already hot and ready for you to use. And it comes with almost all the accessories that you need. Even though it doesn't come with a bottomless portafilter, but I'm not too sure whether SMEG will actually produce a bottomless portafilter, because this could be one of the con of the machine, which is the portafilter is not the standard portafilter. What it means is that you can see that this is actually thicker and there's a gap here between the top of your filter basket to where the fin is. If you have an E61 machine, you will see that this basket is immediately on top of this fin here where you lock up in the group. So there is a raised up group here which make other E61 group polyfilter not compatible with your SMEG machine. But all the other 58mm filter baskets and accessories will fit on this machine. If you change out the basket to IMS or VST, you can also use other temper. There are some other OEM tempers on this, but currently it will be a little bit, okay, once it heat up, you can actually push down, but it will be a very tight fit, which means to say that the tolerance is extremely high on this filter basket. But you can still put your 58mm accessory through it, but you do not actually need all this. You actually have a very good temper provided by SMEG itself, right? So other than the fact that you can't use OEM polyfilter for E61 group, I don't see a problem with this machine, and I see more pros than actually con in this machine. So the only downside is actually the non-standard group, which means if you want to buy a bottomless polyfilter, you probably have to wait for SMEG to release their own. So probably that's the only downside on this machine, right? So this is CY. Thank you for joining, and I hope now you have a better understanding of this SMEG machine model EMC02, right? I think it's their first attempt by SMEG to attempt on a more professional machines, right? Basically, you just need a capable grinder, and this machine can brew very delicious espresso and make as creamy, as velvety milk-based drink that you want it to be. So thank you, and I will see you very soon in the next video.